Hello, I'm Peter Parsons, your town supervisor of Lewisboro, here to give you an update. But so that it is more comprehensible, I am going to get rid of this mask for the period of the interview. There we are. All right. There are two overwhelming issues, which are not town issues specifically, but are national issues, which are dominating everything at the moment. The first is the Black Lives Matter. It is a huge issue, and it's one which I think we are finally coming to terms with. I would ask you to take a look at your own actions and to check whether you're really satisfied with the way you handle racial issues in your life. Second, I'm going to ask you to vote in this year's elections so that you are heard. If you don't vote, you are not heard. And it's that simple. I would like you to watch what's happening in Albany. There is quite a lot of legislation going through about police. You need to decide whether you agree with it, hate it, or are enthusiastic. Whichever your attitude, you need to vote. Our police chief, I think, has done a magnificent job of expressing his position, and this position has been much praised. It's been much praised by people in general and by an eminent member of our community, Judge Eileen Nadelson. And I think if you haven't read what he said, you should. He is also in the process of revising the police policies to ensure we are up to date with what is required now. Finally, I really want you to fill in your census. If you don't fill in your census, you are not counted. You're opting out. If you fill in your census, you make your vote more important. If you fill in your census, you reduce your taxes. Because if you're counted, then the federal government and the state government is forced to give the town more money. It's very simple. If you don't count, if you don't get counted in the census, then quite honestly, I hate to tell you, but you don't count. And that matters. Let's go to COVID-19. I may be borrowing a little from from phrases Governor Cuomo uses, because I think we've all heard a fair amount of him lately. We have flattened the curve. We are now pushing the curve down. And for that, the public deserve an enormous amount of credit, because when you flatten the curve and put it down, it means you are avoiding situations in which you could catch the virus, and avoiding situations in which you are passing on the virus. That is critical. So please, please continue to do that. I would like, it's critical that we go on doing our part. First of all, masks. We must go on wearing masks, except when we're speaking in public. Next, I want you to avoid unnecessary contact. As we go from hunkering down, which has been our posture for the last few months, to a balancing act where we're doing things, but we're not doing unnecessary things which might pass the virus on. Let's go to specific town items. First of all, camp. I know that's important to a lot of you. Kids would dearly like to have camp. Parents might quite like to have camp so they can get back to work without paying out as much in babysitters. And camp will be opening. We've got permission to open from the county, and it will be a different camp. It will be in groups of 10, and you will only mix with your group of 10. I know that isn't quite as much fun, but that's the balancing act. The balancing act between getting back to normal, going to camp, and avoiding spreading the virus, groups of 10. I don't know whether we're going to open the pool. I hope we are going to open the pool, and I would expect us to know within the next week, 10 days, whether the rules we get for opening the pool are sufficiently lax for us to be able to break even on running a pool, and sufficiently strict that we can be relatively confident that it doesn't become a medium to pass on CO-19. So I believe the odds are that the pool will open, but I don't think we're going to know that for sure for at least another week. I think you should thank your Parks and Rec staff for working their hearts out on coming up with a formula for the camp, and simultaneously working on trying to open the pool. At the same time, incidentally, they have been working on trying to provide some entertainment. You will see that if you've already booked tickets for the drive-in movie next weekend, then you will enjoy the results of that work. If you haven't booked the tickets, then I'm sorry, because it's sold out. You will also find that they're coming up with various ideas to enliven our life over the Independence Day weekend. Next thing, outside dining. Restaurants have got permission to open for outside dining, not to open inside, but to open an area outside the restaurant and to have people dine there and to serve them there. I would urge you to take advantage of that. Our restaurants need your support. Otherwise, we're going to end up with a series of closed restaurants. It won't be immediate because the restaurants have got to work out something with the planning board and reassure the planning board that they're doing this according to the rules. The town board passed the rules, but the planning board has to implement them. You will also notice that the town workers are coming back to work in town buildings. That does not give the public access to these buildings. If you want access to a town building to see somebody, then you need to call them in advance, decide whether it's really necessary for you to come in, and if you mutually decide it is really necessary, then you need to make an appointment to come in and see them. Like to pass on now to an issue that has become incredibly frontline during the last few months. That's called communications. People have started working from home in large numbers. I've been working from home March, April, May, June. As the numbers increase by leaps and bounds, it becomes more and more necessary that they can use their telephone, that they have got excellent internet access. At the moment, they don't. And this is causing a real problem. Verizon, as you know, has got FiOS roughly from 684 as far as 121. Not quite, but that's the general area where they've got FiOS. In that area, your telephone and if you use Verizon, your telephone and your internet access should be very good. Unfortunately, once you move east of 121, you hit Disasterville. Verizon is using copper wires in that area, and copper wires, they're copper wires they don't really want to maintain. They would dearly love, as a company, to abandon all copper wires, but they're not allowed to by the Public Service Commission. But the fact is that the copper wiring we've got fails on a lot of grounds. Obviously on any grounds of internet connection, but also it tends to break down fairly often. The alternative is to go with Altice, or you may call them Optimum. But Optimum Altice is a monopoly. They are not subject to the Public Service Commission in any real way. There is a small exception to that, but in general they are not subject to the Public Service Commission. They are a purely profit-making entity, and one of the big things they paid for when they bought this system, cable television, is in bad decline. So, because of that, financially, they don't really want to invest very much in the town of Lewisboro. This is making it very hard for people to work well from home. I know, I've been doing it for a few months. That gives us one other method of communication in town: cell coverage. And one of the things I really believe I have to do over the next few months is do my best to get virtually complete cell coverage in town. Once we've done that, then we can start looking at other less intrusive ways than cell towers to fill in the holes, so that we have got a town where people can live and work at home. I occasionally go out with my wife when she is showing a house. When somebody from out of town comes to look at a house and realizes they've got no cell coverage, it's a kind of defining moment about what kind of town we are. So you don't have cell coverage? Oh, I thought everybody had cell coverage. No, not everybody in Lewisboro. We need to get back to a point where we're giving cell cover, or get to a point where everybody in this town has cell coverage. And that won't happen during my period in office, but I am determined to get as close to that as I can. And I think that is truly important. I think working from home is not going to go away. We're not all suddenly going to pour into Manhattan and go back to office space in Manhattan. Many of us are going to do, let's say, 2 and 3. 2 days in Manhattan, 3 days at home. 1 day in Manhattan, 4 days at home. That is going to become more and more common. Zoom is not going to go away. It may not be quite as dominant, but Zoom is going to practically continue. Thank you, and I really are hoping I can get some support on this balancing act we're going forward with, maintaining the character of the town, allowing people to work, enabling people to work from home, avoiding the virus having a second resurgence in our town, and doing our best to be a town which is friendly to people of all races. Thank you.
You're watching Lewisboro Community Television, Channel 20.